Dreams are not expensive because of money. They are expensive because of discipline. Every real dream asks for something from you. It asks for your time, your focus, your comfort, your excuses, and sometimes your pride. That is why so many people admire success, but never reach it. They want the result without the price. They want the finish without the process. They want the reward without the routine. But life does not hand out lasting progress to people who only want the easy part. The easy part is not where change lives. Change lives the moment you decide to treat your dream like a serious responsibility. If you say you want a better life, then give that life a deadline. If you say you want more money, more peace, more health, more freedom, then stop speaking in vague hopes and start speaking in clear dates and clear actions. A dream with no deadline can drift forever. It can live in your mind for years and still never touch your reality. That is not because you are weak. It is because the dream has not been given enough structure yet. Structure turns intention into movement. It turns movement into habit. It turns habit into identity. And identity is where real success begins. There is a huge difference between wishing and deciding. Wishing says maybe someday. Deciding says this matters now. Wishing keeps the dream safe from failure, but it also keeps it safe from progress. Deciding makes the dream vulnerable to action, and action is where growth begins. When you decide, you expose yourself to learning. You expose yourself to discomfort. You expose yourself to the risk of being seen before you feel ready. But that is the price of becoming. The person who waits for perfect confidence will wait too long. Confidence grows through repetition, not through fantasy. You do not become confident by thinking about the task. You become confident by doing the task, then doing it again, then doing it better. The first step may feel clumsy. The second may feel uncertain. The third may still feel hard. That does not mean the dream is wrong. It means the dream is real. Real things demand growth. Real things demand correction. Real things demand patience. So stop judging your future by the awkwardness of your beginning. The beginning is supposed to be awkward. The beginning is where your courage proves itself. If your life feels scattered, the answer is not more noise. The answer is more direction. A scattered mind can be tired, frustrated, and busy all at the same time, yet still go nowhere. Being busy is not the same as being productive. Tired is not the same as committed. Frustrated is not the same as focused. You need a plan that cuts through the confusion. Write down what matters. Choose the one thing that would change your life if you committed to it long enough. Then give it a date. Give it a sequence. Give it a system. Do not let your goals remain emotional ideas. Turn them into appointments with your future. When a task has a deadline, it becomes real. When a task has a real place on your calendar, it becomes harder to ignore. And when it becomes harder to ignore, your mind begins to respect it. That respect is powerful. It is how ordinary people begin to build extraordinary lives. Not by doing everything at once, but by doing the next right thing with seriousness. You do not need a perfect plan to start. You need a serious plan and the humility to improve while moving. Some of you have been living in a cycle of promise and delay. You make a decision, then lose momentum. You start strong, then get distracted. You feel inspired, then fall back into old habits. That cycle is exhausting because it makes you doubt your own ability to follow through. But the cycle can be broken, not by hoping harder, not by getting lucky. It breaks when you stop treating your future like something that will take care of itself. Your future needs your cooperation. It needs your discipline. It needs your refusal to keep repeating the same week and calling it a new life. Every repeated mistake is a message. It is telling you where your structure is weak. It is telling you where your attention leaks. It is telling you where comfort is winning over commitment. Listen to that message without shame. Then change the system. Create a morning routine that gives your mind a direction before distraction arrives. Create a work block where your focus is protected. Create a nightly review so your progress does not disappear into memory. These simple acts are not small. They are the infrastructure of success. Big results are usually the visible outcome of invisible order. People often think big breakthroughs come from huge moments. In reality, most transformation comes from small decisions repeated enough times to become undeniable. The meal you chose, the hour you guarded, the message you sent, the skill you practiced, the temptation you resisted, the extra rep, the early wake-up, an honest apology, the disciplined yes, the necessary no. These small choices seem ordinary, but they are shaping your identity every day. And identity shapes destiny more than motivation does. Motivation comes and goes. Identity stays. If you repeatedly act like someone who is serious, focused, and responsible, then your mind begins to accept that identity is truth. You stop negotiating with yourself so much. You stop asking permission from your fear. You stop waiting for the perfect mood. You become the kind of person who keeps promises even when the weather inside your mind is changing. That is how progress becomes more reliable. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become more dependable. And dependable people are powerful. They do not need a perfect day to do good work. They create good work because they understand that the work matters more than the mood. The price of a goal is not always painful in the dramatic way people imagine. Sometimes the price is boredom. Sometimes it is repetition. Sometimes it is saying no to easy entertainment so you can say yes to a stronger future. Sometimes it is getting up when your body wants one more excuse. Sometimes it is doing the work after the excitement has disappeared. That is the real cost. Not all sacrifice looks noble. Sometimes sacrifice looks like silence, like patience, like showing up again with no applause. But those quiet sacrifices are powerful because they prove that your commitment is deeper than your feelings. Anyone can work when they feel inspired. The person who wins works when inspiration has left the room. That does not make life miserable. It makes life meaningful. Because meaning grows when effort is attached to purpose. When you know why you are doing something, sacrifice stops feeling empty. It starts feeling like an investment. An investment changes your attitude. You stop saying, I have to do this. You start saying, I get to build this. That shift may seem small, but it changes the energy of your entire life. Many people are not failing because they lack ability. They are failing because they have never learned how to stay consistent long enough for the ability to mature. Skill needs repetition. Trust needs reliability. Results need patience. A seed does not become a tree in one afternoon. A body does not get strong in one workout. A career does not stabilize in one good week. A mind does not become disciplined in one burst of effort. Progress takes time, but time alone is not enough. Time plus consistency creates change. That is why deadlines matter. They keep time from becoming empty. They turn time into direction. They tell your mind that this is not just something you would like to do. This is something you are serious about. Once your mind understands seriousness, it stops treating your goal like a fantasy. It starts treating it like a project. And a project can be managed. It can be broken down. It can be improved. It can be measured. That is where confidence comes from. Not from pretending the task is easy, but from seeing yourself become capable through repeated effort. Every day you stay consistent, you become less like who you were and more like who you mean to become. It is possible to waste years thinking you need more time when what you really need is more decisions. Many people wait for the right season, the right money, the right connection, the right confidence, the right sign. Some of those things matter, but none of them replace commitment. A decision is powerful because it cuts through delay. It says the dream matters enough to stop negotiating with fear. It says I will not keep calling my comfort a strategy. It says I will not keep dressing hesitantly for a nice name. Delay can feel safe because it protects you from failure, but it also protects you from growth. You cannot become the person you want to be while hiding from the very work that would shape you. That work might be uncomfortable. It might be slow. It might challenge your pride. Good. That means it is doing its job. If everything feels easy, you may not be stretching enough. If everything feels comfortable, you may be staying too close to the old version of your life. Growth begins where comfort ends. Not because pain is the goal, but because transformation requires resistance. There is a version of you that is stronger than your current habits. That version is not magical. It is built. It is built from the things you repeat when no one is watching. It is built from the standards you keep when excuses try to lower them. It is built from the patience you practice when the result is still out of view. You become that stronger person one decision at a time. You decide to be early. You decide to finish. You decide to learn. You decide to focus. You decide to stay. These decisions sound simple, but they are life-changing when they are repeated with intention. The world rewards people who are stable enough to be trusted with bigger opportunities. Stability begins with self-control. Self-control begins with honesty. Honesty begins with looking at your life without making excuses for what needs to change. You do not have to hate yourself to change. In fact, shame usually weakens change. Respect strengthens it. Tell yourself the truth with enough courage to act on it. Then let your actions prove that the truth was worth hearing. That is how life turns around. One honest decision becomes the doorway to many better ones. The first battle you must win is the battle against your own delay. Delay has a way of sounding reasonable. It tells you to wait until you feel better. It tells you to wait until life is less busy. It tells you to wait until the pressure is gone. But the truth is that waiting often becomes a habit. And once waiting becomes a habit, action starts to feel foreign. That is why a deadline is more than a date. It is a boundary. It protects your intention from disappearing. When you create a deadline, you tell your mind that the goal is not a decoration. It is a real responsibility. That shift matters. A responsibility changes how you think, how you move, and how you spend your energy. You stop leaking focus into random places. You begin to gather yourself. You begin to think like someone who expects progress. That expectation changes behavior. It makes you more careful with time. It makes you less tolerant of distractions. It makes you more willing to finish what you started. And finishing is a powerful habit. People who finish learn how to trust themselves. They know they can count on their own word. That trust becomes fuel for the next goal. If you are feeling stuck, do not wait for motivation to rescue you. Motivation is useful, but it is not reliable. Some days you will feel fired up. Some days you will feel flat. The flat days are where discipline must carry the weight. Discipline is not cold. Discipline is love with structure. It is a way of saying my future matters enough that I will not abandon it because my mood changed. When you build discipline, you give yourself an advantage that does not depend on luck. You become harder to distract, harder to discourage, and harder to derail. That does not mean every day will feel easy. It means every day can still move you forward. Even a small step counts when it is consistent. A focused 30 minutes can beat a distracted 3 hours. A clean habit repeated daily can beat a dramatic burst that dies in a week. Real progress is often quiet. It grows in ordinary moments that nobody posts online. But those ordinary moments are building your reputation with yourself. And that reputation matters more than applause. When you respect your own routines, you begin to respect your own future. Failure can be a teacher if you stop treating it like a final verdict. One bad attempt does not mean the dream was wrong. It may mean the method was weak. One missed opportunity does not mean your value is gone. It may mean your preparation needs more work. One rejection does not mean you are invisible forever. It may mean the door was not yours to force open. Mature people learn to separate the lesson from the wound. They do not deny the pain, but they do not worship it either. They ask what the moment is trying to teach them. They correct the angle. They refine the plan. They return stronger. That is how resilience is formed. Not by pretending everything is fine, but by refusing to let one hard chapter define the whole book. You can be disappointed and still be dangerous to your limits. You can be tired and still be effective. You can be unsure and still keep moving. In fact, some of the strongest people in the world learned how to build their confidence while they were still carrying uncertainty. They did not wait for certainty. They created evidence through action. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing comfort with peace. Comfort feels safe, but it can slowly shrink your appetite for growth. Peace is different. Peace is what you feel when your actions are aligned with your values. Comfort asks, what is easiest right now? Peace asks, what is right for the future I am building? Those are not the same question. If you always choose the easiest answer, you may end up with a life that looks calm on the surface, but feels frustrating underneath. That is because your deeper self knows you are capable of more. Do not silence that knowing. Respect it. Let it challenge you. Let it call you forward. The call may not feel pleasant, but it is honest. It tells you that you were not made to stay small forever. You were made to grow into greater responsibility, greater strength, and greater purpose. Comfort may ask you to sit still. Purpose asks you to rise. Comfort may ask you to avoid pressure. Purpose asks you to become the kind of person who can carry pressure without breaking. That difference matters more than most people realize. You do not need to become fearless in order to move. Fear is part of the human experience. The key is not to obey it every time it speaks. Fear will often sound loudest right before growth. It will tell you that you are not ready. It will tell you that you might fail. It will tell you that other people are ahead. Those thoughts can feel convincing, but they are not always true. What is true is this: action reveals strength that hesitation hides. You may not know how strong you are until you begin. You may not know how capable you are until you keep going after the first sign of resistance. That is why movement matters so much. The body learns from repetition. The mind learns from experience. The heart learns from proof. Each time you move while afraid, you teach yourself that fear is not the boss. It may be present, but it does not have to lead. That lesson can change your life. It can make you less reactive and more courageous. It can help you move through uncertainty with a calmer spirit and a clearer purpose. And once you learn that you can move while afraid, your world gets bigger. Big dreams require clean priorities. You cannot build a meaningful future while allowing everything to compete for your attention. The mind gets tired when it is pulled in too many directions. It gets weak when every notification becomes urgent. It gets unfocused when every thought is treated like a command. You have to choose what deserves your energy. Not everything is important. Not everything is urgent. Not everything is worthy of your time. A successful life often begins with subtraction. Remove the habits that waste your day. Remove the conversations that drain your focus. Remove the clutter that keeps you from thinking clearly. Remove the pressure to impress people who do not build your future. Then place your best energy where it can grow. When priorities are clear, decisions become easier. When decisions become easier, momentum becomes possible. When momentum becomes possible, progress becomes visible. This is how disciplined people move. They are not magical. They are just more deliberate about where their life goes. They understand that energy is limited, and every day is a choice about where that energy will be invested. Make the investment count. A deadline gives your dream a heartbeat because it creates urgency without panic. Urgency is healthy when it pushes you toward action. Panic is destructive because it scatters your mind. You want the first, not the second. You want the kind of urgency that makes you clean up your schedule, focus your efforts, and stop wasting weeks on vague intentions. If your goal matters, treat it like it matters. Do not speak about it casually while living casually. Align your behavior with your aspiration. If you want a stronger body, respect your food and movement. If you want a stronger career, respect your skill and time. If you want a stronger mind, respect what you consume and what you repeat. Life responds to alignment. When your actions and your values point in the same direction, progress becomes more natural. That does not make the road easy. It makes it honest. Honest effort is powerful because it does not waste energy pretending. It simply works. It simply persists. It simply builds. And over time, that honest effort becomes visible. People begin to notice the difference. They see the growth in your choices long before they see it in your results. Maybe you have been carrying the shame of unfinished goals for too long. Maybe you have been telling yourself that you should be further along by now. Maybe you have made promises to yourself and broken them enough times that your own voice feels weakened. If that is where you are, this is not the time for self-hate. It is the time for self-respect. Self-respect does not ignore failure. It responds to failure with a better plan. It says, I missed the mark, but I am still capable of learning. I slipped, but I am not lost. I delayed, but I can return. That return matters. The strongest people are not those who never fall. They are the ones who know how to return without drama and continue without excuses. They are honest about where they are. They are serious about where they are going. They do not need every restart to be perfect. They need it to be real. Real restarts are humble. They begin with a decision and continue with discipline. They are not glamorous, but they are effective. And effective is what changes lives. When you start treating your goal like a job, your life starts to change. A job has expectations. A job has a schedule. A job has accountability. A job has consequences if you ignore it. Your dream deserves that same respect. Not because you should be harsh with yourself, but because your future deserves structure. People who build something meaningful usually make peace with routine. They accept that excellence is not random. It is repeated. They understand that one good day is encouraging, but a good system is stronger. Systems keep moving when feelings are weak. Systems reduce dependence on mood. Systems turn effort into a habit rather than a battle. So build systems. Build a wake-up time you honor. Build a work window you protect. Build a review process that keeps you honest. Build a weekly check-in that measures what matters. These are not small details. They are the framework that holds your goals up when life gets noisy. Without a framework, your dream can sag under pressure. With a framework, it has a chance to stand and grow. And what you build with structure can survive what inspiration cannot. Sometimes the reason a dream feels heavy is because the person carrying it has not yet learned how to divide the load. Everything feels overwhelming when it all stays in the mind. But once you break the goal into smaller pieces, the weight starts to make sense. What is the next step? What is the next hour? What is the next habit? What needs to happen this week? What can be finished today? These questions are powerful because they turn anxiety into action. They replace the feeling of being lost with the clarity of movement. A life turns around one manageable decision at a time. You do not have to solve your whole future in one sitting. You just have to keep making real progress. A small win today builds momentum for tomorrow. A small win repeated tomorrow becomes a pattern. A pattern repeated long enough becomes identity. And identity changes everything. The person who sees themselves as a finisher starts to finish more often. The person who sees themselves as disciplined starts to act disciplined. The person who sees themselves as capable starts to move with more confidence. This is how self-image is rebuilt. Not by wishful thinking, but by repeated proof. There is no shame in beginning where you are. There is only danger in pretending that beginning counts as finishing. Respect the start, but do not romanticize it. Every beginning needs a middle, and every middle demands endurance. The middle is where the dream gets tested. It is where excitement fades and character gets exposed. It is where you find out whether you were just inspired or truly committed. That is why many people stop there. The middle does not flatter them. It asks for consistency. It asks for patience. It asks for maturity. But if you can stay in the middle long enough, the dream starts to mature too. It becomes less of a fantasy and more of a structure. It starts to feel real because you are making it real. Your effort gives it weight. Your repetition gives it shape. Your sacrifice gives it value. That is a beautiful thing. Because a dream that has been worked on becomes something you can stand inside, not just admire from a distance. Keep going through the middle. That is where the strongest part of your story is being written. Stay with the work, protect the deadline, and let the dream become real through steady action. Your future is waiting for the version of you who does not quit when resistance rises. And that version starts now fully.